Hi guys, Brant here, and welcome to another commentary video. This one's gonna be a slightly more on the ranty side, a little bit. It's not a rant video, it's gonna be slightly more on the ranty side. But this video today specifically has to do with Larry, good old Singularity, the recent killer that just came out, and more so has to do with a lot of like what people have been saying about the killer, when I've been watching people play on their streams, when my friends have talked to me about the killer and how they feel about it. I've been noticing some takes that are just kind of like, and they're not even just like out there takes for attention, like they're very popular takes that I'm seeing consistently. And it brings me back to another killer release that I had that actually was a rant video that got very popular, and kind of just like how I don't understand how people are reacting so negatively to the Singularity. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So what I'm alluding to here is that the Singularity is being disliked, being fairly disliked by a lot of people I'm seeing who play Survivor against the Singularity. People are saying they're very, very boring with when they're in overclock mode. The built-in Brutal, the built-in Spirit Fury when they cross over pallets. These very, very strong anti-chase tools. They're talking about how the killer is very, very unfun to face because it makes it feel like pallets don't do as much, and that it makes the killer ultimately just a chore to face, and how they really, really don't like going against them. Now, of course, the Singularity does not have access to these things right away. They have to build up to them by putting the goop pods everywhere, and then they have to actually shoot you with one of the goop pods, and then they have to teleport to you by hitting you again with a goop. So there's a lot of setup to this, which obviously is interrupted and taken away by EMPs, which even with the nerf, the first nerf that we've had to EMPs upon his release, it's still very common to be able to have access to EMPs, especially because of the fact that survivors can prime EMP, so they can print a whole EMP and just kind of like leave it there, so you don't even have to necessarily always grab the EMP yourself. Somebody can just like prep it for you, and when you go and you grab it. So there's a lot of ways you can shut down his power, which I think is the reason that, like, to me, I didn't necessarily ever see a problem with him having like these built-in perks, because they're not like something crazy like Deathslinger's Harpoon or like Blight's Rush or like Spirit's Phase. It's not nearly these are leagues away in terms of strength. Like the Singularity is realistically not that great of a killer, which is fine. He can be like a low B high C character, and that's fine. But like realistically he's not that strong of a character because it is so easy to shut down his power, which even though his power is just Spirit Fury, is just brutal when he has access to it, right? So there is measurable counterplay to the character, which is readily available. Now they are going to nerf the EMPs again, and we'll see after that, but I still don't think even after their second adjustment to EMPs that they're still going to be not as present, and I think that's fine. I want to say is I think that's fine, but what's coming down to the reason that I'm making this video is because like people are like under this impression that like people are under this impression that the Singularity is just like a super unfun killer, another anti-chase killer that nobody wants to face, and everybody he's so boring, he's so terrible. And I made a video a long time ago that was like a full-on rant video about me getting frustrated against at this side, this sort of mentality with Sadako, with good old Onryo, because I remember when Sadako first released, and this was before anybody had even figured out like the intentional condemned stuff and made that a whole play style. It was just her passive phasing. That was all she had, was her teleporting and her passive phasing, because people hadn't figured out how to like optimize the condemned stuff yet. People were talking back then about how Sadako is super boring, and the Onryo is so unfun to face, her passive phasing so confusing, and if I pre-drop she can't do anything, that's it. I can't really loop with her, and it like realistically, like without her, the condemned strat, Sadako is very, very, very weak. Sadako is very, 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 very weak as the character without her ability to like do the condemn stuff. Like she's still a fairly okay killer. She's not, I wouldn't put her bottom 5, but she's like she's probably bottom 10 without the condemn strat. She's probably bottom 10 without the condemn strat. But she's not a strong killer. But like I remember when she came out too, despite her being a bottom 10 killer, people were saying the same things of like, oh, she's really unfun to face, I don't want to go against her, another boring killer. And it's just like it gets to the point where I'm starting to think, like, would anything make the DBD community happy at this point? Like, what would you like to face? That's my question. That is my question. Is like, what would you like to face? And I don't mean that facetiously. I don't mean that as a haha gotcha. Like, I am genuinely curious. Like, if you guys, those of you that watch me that like either main Survivor or 50/50 Survivor, or generally just like really enjoy the role, like, what do you want out of a killer? Because it seems like every design that comes out is a miss. And I feel like the Singularity, perhaps even a little bit underwhelming so, is a very like tame design when it comes to a killer. They could have been another 3-gen killer like Knight or Skull Merchant. They could have had a super overwhelming anti-chase ability like Spirit or Blight. But Larry doesn't have that. Larry has Goop that gives him some built-in perks, and it's really easy to get rid of the Goop. So I'm just curious, right? I'm just curious, and I do mean this as more of an open forum. I really do want you to actually respond. It's not just like me talking to the ether here. Like, I really do actually want to know. I actually do want to hear from you if you guys prefer Survivor or play a lot of Survivor. What would be the ideal killer for you? Because it seems like as much as behavior does fail and like make a lot of mistakes that I I'm very sad to see them make. At a certain point, it starts to sound like with a lot of like the Survivor community, it seems like behavior can do no right when it comes to killer design. And it seems like the killers that the Survivors actually like facing are like the bottom 5. They're like, oh, well, I don't mind a Myers if they don't have Tombstone. But yeah, like, Myers is probably the weakest character in the game without Tombstone. He's one of the few characters in the game who could literally run out of his power and just be an M1 Andy. Or like, oh, I like Trappers when they don't trap Basement, which is like one of the only things they really can do to actually create some sort of snowball because, Trapper is so weak. So that's what I hear a lot when people are like, no, that killer's super fun to face. They'll say a lot like Billy's too. They'll be like, oh, well, Billy's super fun to face. And you're like, you're talking about that Billy that's only throwing for curves, is clearly not trying to win, and it will spend like 15 minutes at the same loop trying to get an M2 on you while the rest of your friends do the gens and leave. Like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to make that sweeping accusation that like, oh, you only like characters you win against. But that seems to be the case. It's like a lot, like, it seems like Survivors, or the wider Survivor community, just likes killers that they can win against, or killers that are weak, or killers that, like in Billy's case, you have to throw so much to do like half the stuff that the character is capable of doing to use their power. So I want to know, like, just like I said, not in any way being facetious, not in any way being condescending. Like, I really do want to know, what is it that you want out of a perfect killer design? Because if it really does only boil down to like, I only like stuff I can win against, like that's truth. That's honesty. I would appreciate that honesty, but like, that sucks. That's a bad take, and you can't use that take objectively, because that's not an objective take. You can't just like side the killer community with just seat the killer community with bad killers so you can have a better time. It takes two to tango. There's two sides in this game. So what is your idea if you play more Survivor, or you enjoy Survivor a lot? What is your idea for a, like, what would be your parameters, I guess would be the word. What would be your parameters for a killer that would be fun for both sides, that's actually enjoyable to face, but doesn't actually just leave the killer or community with like a super weak base kit that isn't like worth playing? So please let me know that. I'm actually very curious. Is there something I'm missing out on? Is there something that I'm not getting? Because it does seem like over and over, either behavior releases a really boring killer archetype like Knight or Skull Merchant, and then I get it. But then when they roll back and they stop making like those really boring killer archetypes, and they make somebody more tame, like Singularity, people still end up hating it and just like lamenting over it anyway, and it just makes me wonder what people even actually want. So if you could help me give some clarity with that, I would very much appreciate that. But that's gonna be it for today's video, friends. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys for spending time with me, but I do upload daily, so I will see you tomorrow, and if I do not, I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.